Right, we all know the perfect guitar tone, don't we? All the gain, that endless sustain, the clarity that just makes riffs sing. But let's be honest, there are some out there that just make your ears bleed. Tones that have sparked holy wars across the internet, ignited debates on every forum, and divided fan bases down the middle. Sounds that people just genuinely hate. Today, we're diving headfirst into that sonic battlefield. This isn't about my favourite tones, or even my least favourite tones. Oh no, we're looking at the top 10 most hated metal tones of all time, according to the internet's most brutal critics. These are the sounds that get all the flack and the most outright scorn from metalheads worldwide. We're going to explore why these tones are so universally slammed, who created them, and how. So are you ready to face the music? Let's plug in and turn up the controversy. Kicking off our list at number 10, Intombed, Left Hand Path. This album's tone is slammed for its notorious chainsaw buzz. People online say it's muddy, silly, or simply unlistenable, calling it a chainsaw through a beehive. This sound largely came from pushing a Boss HM2 pedal to its absolute limits. Everything is on 11. But it did create that unique, aggressive buzzsaw tone. Now, my take on this one? Well, honestly, I actually love this album tone. The HM2 pedal is fairly iconic, isn't it? And it's very clearly in heavy use in this album. And I think it's safe to say that Intombed were one of the pioneers for using the HM2 chainsaw sound. But if I'm being honest, I do feel like maybe the bass could have been a bit higher in the mix. And then because of that, the guitar tone, for all its coolness, does seem a bit thin and it lacks some punch. Especially if you compare it to more modern mixes where people use these pedals, like Harriot, End, and Knocked Loose. They seem to get so much more body and impact out of it, which makes you wonder what a bit more bass could have actually done for this absolute classic, doesn't it? Coming in at number 9, Bersamos, Philosophum. This black metal classic is infamous for its production, with its guitar tone being utterly awful to many ears. Online, you'll find it described as fizzy, tinny, and like a broken amp, with some calling it ear-piercing or like nails on a chalkboard. This distinctively raw sound came from recording a guitar through a fuzz pedal, and then that was going into a hi-fi home stereo system with a simple headset microphone. Who'd have thought? Now, my personal take on this one, I know this is iconically how raw black metal is meant to sound, and I guess you've got to respect the artistic intent behind it. But honestly, to my ears, the tone seems like a joke, doesn't it? It's just so incredibly ear-piercing, truly very shrill. It actually really makes you wonder if the true intent was just to make it as offensive to the ears as possible. Who knows, maybe that was the whole point. It certainly got a reaction, I guess. At number 8, Ozzy Osbourne, The Blizzard of Oz. This debut with Randy Rhoads is an absolute classic. But Randy's guitar tone here is often called weird or awful. Online you'll see it being referred to as boxy, overly mid-heavy, lacking any punch, with some saying it's way too weak and overprocessed. His sound largely came from the Marshall JCM 800-2203. Also, he used MXR Distortion Plus pedals, but many believe that heavy studio compression pretty much flattened out the natural dynamics. Now, what's my take on this? Honestly, I was actually always surprised by Randy's tone. You watch videos of him playing, and behind him he's got these giant Marshall stacks, huge plexi amps, and with that kind of wall of Marshalls, you'd expect a wall of Marshall sound. But on the album, it kind of sounds a bit dry, and it sounds like the guitar's volume knob has been dialed down a bit too much. And then I think that makes it lack the vital punch that it needs. Don't get me wrong, the solos definitely sound better than the riffs. They've got a bit more life going on in them. But I feel the overall guitar sound is just a bit dry, thin, and lifeless. Which is such a shame, because these songs are like revered and they're so iconic, and Randy was such a legendary guitarist. It doesn't really quite match the beast that was Randy's live rig, does it? Sliding into number 7, Testament, Souls of Black. This thrash album's tone has famously been called dismal online. People online say it's too thin, too trebly, seriously lacking any low-end punch, especially for a thrash album. They used ADA MP1 preamps into Marshall Tube power amps, which some felt delivered a fizzy or a thin tone when not mixed properly. Now, what did I think of this one? Personally, when I listened to this album, I think the guitar tone feels like it's really far away, and the bass weirdly sounds like it's louder in the mix. Do you think? For me, the guitars feel like they're too quiet, too low in the mix, and like with a lot of these, they're just not punchy enough. It really leaves those powerful riffs just yearning for more impact, I think. Our number 6 spot goes to Obituary, Slowly We Rock. This death metal debut is brutal, but its guitar tone is widely cited as pretty poor. Online you'll find it called swampy, lo-fi and unpolished, with critics saying it's too sludgy or even lifeless, so much so that individual notes just get lost. This raw sound likely came from using a PV amp, specifically a VTM 120, or Randall solid-state amps combined with rudimentary early death metal recording techniques. My take on this one? For me, the guitar tone on this album sounds like the tone knob on the guitar has been turned all the way off. It's really odd. It just sounds so thin and nasally. It's a proper shame because the solos actually came out sounding pretty good. At least they've got some life to them. But for a band that's meant to be like heavy, super extreme death metal, I was always expecting this massive, full, in-your-face wall of amp sound. Instead, it sounds a bit like someone plugged into a practice amp and then grabbed a distortion pedal, like a Rat or something, and then just cranked it all the way to 11. I just think it doesn't hit with the punch that you'd expect it to. Halfway there, number 5, Megadeth, Killing Is My Business and Business Is Good. A thrash masterpiece in songwriting, but its guitar tone is widely labelled pretty crappy. Online it's called brittle, noisy, nasal, harsh, generally lacking any body or any polish. This was largely due to the band, particularly Dave Mustaine, taking over the production themselves, resulting in a rushed, unpolished mix using Marshall JCM 800s. So my take on this one? For me, the guitar tone on this album genuinely sounds like when you film a band with a video recorder from the 80s and the microphone sound you get from that, it sounds like they used one of those. It's really weird. It's got like a sort of distant, muffled quality to it. The drums sound brilliant though, they're like punchy and upfront, but the guitars, especially on the song Mechanics, they just sound super far away and really thin. Compare that to the Four Horsemen song off of the album Kill 'Em All by Metallica. Now, I'm not going to say that I love the Kill 'Em All tone either, but at least those guitars have a proper punchy feel to them, and they feel more up close and in your face. This one, for a thrash album, doesn't really hit the mark for me, I think. At number 4, Hell Awaits by Slayer. This foundational album has a guitar tone notoriously difficult for some. Often described as barely hearable, if that's even a word. People online say it's muddy, undefined, lacking clarity and a muffled mess, with some people saying, it hurts my ears.
My neck hurts and my ears. I have 2 owies.
This largely came from the raw, unrefined and chaotic mix of the Marshall JCM 800. Very typical of early extreme metal. My thoughts on this album? Slayer, a band so revered for their aggression and their heaviness, there's just no real power or aggression, and for Slayer, you expect like a monstrous wall of amp sound, huge backline of Marshalls, and you expect the guitar to just come and hit you in the face. And it doesn't deliver that punch at all, and it's just really weird. It's just really odd for a band of that caliber, but I guess it was one of their earlier albums. And at number 3, Death, Scream Bloody Gore. Chuck Schuldiner is legendary, but the tone on this debut album is often slammed as super thin, scratchy, and just plain trebly. Online, it's widely said that it sounds a bit like a wasp in a soda can, with complaints that actually the drums just overpower the guitars. People often say it sounds like it was recorded through a practice amp in a basement, but in fact the raw sound came from early death metal production again, often using JCM 800s, and he was using BC Rich guitars with the DiMarzio X2N pickup, that kind of rail looking one. But I guess it was a less than ideal mix, as it didn't really emphasize the guitars at all. Now what do I think about it? For me, it does sound a bit shrill. It doesn't really have enough bass, it's just not bassy enough. I think it also lacks the mids. I don't know what preset he was using or what tonal settings, but mids were probably on 0, treble on full, bass on 5 or something. It's a bit weird. I actually think it possibly inspired the legendary HM2 sound. They were probably emulating that death early tone back in the day. But when you compare it to their newer stuff, like Human or even Symbolic, it's absolutely totally night and day. And you'd expect more from the godfather of death metal, am I right? And now our runner-up at number 2, Pantera, Cowboys from Hell. Dimebag's guitar tone here is iconic, but it's also wildly divisive, and some people would say it's referred to as razor thin. People online say it's not very full at all, it's one-dimensional, it's pinched, nasally even. Some people say it's like a colony of bees attacking a Metal Zone pedal.
Not the bees!
This was due to his famous mid-scooping via EQ pedals, there were lots of them, and using solid-state random amps. Well, I can't believe this because this is actually one of my favourite guitar tones of all time. I love the guitar tone on this album, and it's one of my favourite Pantera albums. I've always had a real soft spot for treble, shrill-sounding guitars, and I'm sure this is why, and it actually genuinely shaped a lot of my gear interests growing up. It clicked with me, I think. But, and this is a very big but, I can absolutely see why people don't like it, especially if you compare it to their later albums. In the later albums, the sound became much more full and way more well-rounded. His tone has always worked well with Rex's bass, so you can't really listen to it in isolation, but I totally get why some people don't like it. It's a proper divisive one, that's for sure. And finally, taking the top spot as one of the most hated guitar tones on a metal album, Metallica, Saint Anger. This album's production is almost universally slammed, and the guitar tone is a major culprit called both tinny and lifeless. Online it's called bland, dry, boxy and demo-ish, weak and fizzy, and utterly lacking body or any punch. It's famously likened to a high school battle of the bands. This was due to a deliberate change in philosophy, using Mesa Boogie triple rectifiers with diesel VH4s with 7 strings in drop C weirdly, aiming for that raw unpolished guitar sound. Now my thoughts on this album's guitar tone? Metallica has always been revered as some of the best guitar tone on albums ever. I mean, people go absolutely mad for the Black Album. So when Saint Anger came out, I was just really surprised again by how dry and lifeless the guitar sounded. I know it's probably new territory for Metallica, they were playing in drop C, they were even bringing in 7 strings as well. They probably didn't really know how to EQ the amps differently, because you've got to change everything when the guitars change and the tunings change. Part of it also feels like the guitars are out of tune at times, like the left guitar and the right guitar don't sound like they're perfectly intonated. And it also feels a bit like James was letting Kirk have a go at recording rhythm as well, because it didn't sound punchy like in the older albums when James recorded every guitar himself. I think they did that to make it feel like a bit more of a garage band feel. Nu metal was popular at the time, so they were going for this more raw, stripped back approach. But it lacked a lot of punch, lacked a lot of clarity, and it's just a real head scratcher of a production choice. I don't get it at all. So there you have it, our top 10 most hated guitar tones of all time. I guess what these examples show us is that bad tone is rarely simple. It's a complex blend of technical choices, artistic intent, and listener preferences. Sometimes a tone can be flawed. Other times, it's actually a deliberate statement that maybe just didn't land very well. Also, many of these albums were the early releases of the band, a raw part of that band's tonal journey, and we're also judging it now with modern ears. So who knows, maybe those albums back in the day actually hit really hard. So my message for you is simple. Just get your riffs out there, write the ideas and show everyone your music. You can always work on your tone later. The goal, then and now, should always just be the music itself. So what are your thoughts on this list? Did I miss out any iconic ones? Do you secretly love any of these? Do you have a soft spot for Saint Anger? Let me know in the comments below and we can have a right old debate about it.